Welcome to the Italian Wine Podcast. I'm Cynthia Chaplin, and this is Voices. Every Wednesday, I will be sharing conversations with international wine industry professionals, discussing issues in diversity, equity, and inclusion through their personal experiences working in the field of wine. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe and rate our show wherever you get your pods. Hello, everyone. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Hoby Wedler. He has a Ph.D. in organic chemistry at UC Davis in California. And more importantly, for Italian Wine Podcast, he's the founder and owner of Tasting in the Dark. And this year, he was named one of Wine Enthusiast's 40 Under 40 Tastemakers. Congratulations on your award, and welcome to the show, Hoby.
Cynthia, thank you so much. It's a real honor to talk to you. I've listened to a few of your shows and really enjoyed this podcast, and it was a humbling honor to be invited to join you. So thank you very much. How are you today?
I'm great. Very kind words. Thank you very much. I'm great, and I've been looking forward to talking to you all day. So we'll get this going because we have a lot to talk about tonight. We'll address the big issue right here. First of all, you've been blind from birth.
Absolutely, totally blind since birth, and
well, you've achieved some amazing things.
Well, thank you. And I like to say that, yes, I am totally blind and I wouldn't want it any other way. I've learned how to live my life as a blind person, and I know the world around me, and I love the world around me. So that's what I appreciate. And, if I got my sight back, I'd have to relearn things. So I'm a proud blind man. Let's just say that.
I love that. My question, well, I have a lot of questions about this, but one of the things that really struck me immediately when I started stalking you for this interview was, where did you find the inspiration and the wherewithal to become, of all things, a chemist? It sounds dangerous.
It's funny. That's a great question. I've always had a deep fascination for really how things work and how things fit together. And I remember vividly, actually, standing in my kitchen in April of the year 1991, when I was just about 4 years old in my parents' kitchen, and turning on the tap to get a glass of water. I'd done this hundreds of times, but it dawned on me that water was actually flowing out of this faucet into my glass, and where the heck was this water coming from? And that led to a whole fascination of, wow, there's plumbing throughout a city that brings water to everyone's home. Where are these pipes running? How do they work? And that led to a trip to the Water Resources Department and, all sorts of things. And my parents were just so excited about me exploring the world around me. And I remember another example a few years later of, plugging in the vacuum cleaner and turning it on and having it hum to life. So I was going to clean my room. And I thought, now what the heck is running this thing? How are electrons flowing? Like I know that we don't pay for electrons, do we? And that led to a whole discussion of electricity with my father and understanding that really what we pay for is actually not the electrons themselves. Those are fairly recycled. Rather, we pay for the electromotive force or voltage that pushes those electrons through a wire. One thing led to another, and I think a lot of people have passions that are developed, grown upon by childhood, but really developed by excellent teachers. And I had a wonderful high school physical science teacher who actually ended up being my chemistry teacher. And with her in physical science, I just fell in love with chemistry. I was so passionate about it. It was what drove me to enjoy science. And, when it came time to take a test to see if I would get into honors chemistry, of course, I tried and scored high on that test. And she couldn't really deny me the opportunity to sit in that class, but we had to figure out how we would make it accessible. And, we did very well. We brought a student in who was 1 year my senior who worked as my eyes in the laboratory and scribed my answers on tests, but I did everything else. And it was interesting because, she, in many ways, this instructor would tell the class, chemistry, you might think of it as just a prerequisite to do what you think you want to do, but really it's the study of how things work. It's what we eat. It's what we drink. It's what we breathe. Chemistry is everything. You all should think about studying chemistry at a more thorough level than just what you need it for in college. And the rest of the class, I don't think, was really interested. I was different. I loved chemistry and thought, well, yeah, this is exciting. I want to study chemistry for my career, possibly, because I want to teach it and inspire others, like I was inspired. So I would talk to her alone and say, I really want to study chemistry. How do you think I should do this as a blind person? And she would say, well, I don't think this makes sense for you. I think it's not necessarily the right direction for you to go, blah, blah, blah. And I kind of said, okay, this is interesting. Now I got to think about why I think chemistry and a career in chemistry makes sense to me. And I remember vividly the second week of the second semester of my high school class, career with her is my junior year. I went into her classroom and I said, I understand that you think chemistry is a visual science, but I have to tell you that nobody can see atoms. Chemistry is really a cerebral science where we use our vision, or our eyesight rather, to understand a few things that might happen in the laboratory. But really, chemistry is something that we think about and ponder in our mind. And she said, wow, that's really interesting. I appreciate you for that. And became a great supporter and a true ally, and still is a dear friend and ally. And she encouraged me then to go on to UC Davis and study chemistry as an undergraduate. And then that led to me wanting to teach chemistry at the college level and applying for my Ph.D. because I found a great chemistry mentor. And I did that, and I had the honor of teaching some general chemistry classes, which is what I wanted to teach as a graduate student, and realized that students didn't necessarily like to read the textbook, and they didn't speak chemistry. They wanted to see a bunch of photos and videos and cute animations and this sort of thing. And it was like, why is this like, I was spending a lot of time and money, frankly, working with assistants, making these beautiful presentations, and then spending a lot of time trying to memorize these presentations so I could present them coherently because they were not accessible to me; they were accessible to my students. And I thought, why am I spending all this time trying to make something accessible to my students when it's hard to make accessible to me without assistance? So that's what sort of led me into entrepreneurship, and it was actually while in graduate school that I got into wine.
That's an incredible story. It's so interesting how a supportive parent, a supportive teacher can really be so impactful on your life. I'm glad you're still friends with that teacher. That's
She's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing, and also inspire you to teach as well, despite the obvious obstacles. And so, now, of course, we have to also say that. So, if you were 4 in 1991, you're obviously still a youngster. So, this PhD must have been in the very recent past.
It was in 2016. Yeah.
That's the recent past, Toby. Wow, that's incredible. So, what you said you decided to stretch out and become an entrepreneur instead of staying in the classroom. How did that go? What was the idea? Where did you move with that?
First of all, in general, I got excited about entrepreneurship sort of at the end of my graduate tenure because I realized that it was, for me, and I think for 95+% of entrepreneurs, entrepreneurship is not about money or power, right? It's really rather about solving problems and maybe creating a business entity to solve an important problem. And what I realized is that I'd been doing this since day one for my survival as a blind person in a sighted world. And I had a really good sort of diverse approach. And could I solve problems for people that maybe they didn't know they needed solutions to? And that's what led me into really wanting to be an entrepreneur. The way that I got into wine is kind of a fun story. Right at the very end of my undergraduate tenure and the beginning of my graduate work in 2011, a mutual friend introduced me to Francis Ford Coppola. And Coppola's team called me and said, "Hey, what do you think of hosting building with Francis, a truly blindfolded wine experience?" And when Francis's team says jump, you say, "Okay, and what are we doing here? Let's do it."
Yeah, absolutely.
When they call and ask you to do something, you say yes. And then I hung up and said, "Oh my God, what did I just agree to do?" But I worked with Francis to develop a wine experience, and it was really my own wine experience that Francis approved. That but the innovation was among me and a lot of his amazing winemakers and team at the winery. And the goal was to create an experience that was a truly blindfolded wine experience, and a lot of fun to build that and create that. And to me, it was not about using the blindfold as a game or a gimmick, but rather about creating an opportunity to think about wine in a few different ways when maybe we're not distracted by our eyesight. because we use eyesight to obtain 85 to 90% of the information from our surroundings, which is interesting because it's 1 out of 5 senses that we use for so much information mining, which means to me that we have 4 additional perfectly good senses, which we only use to take in 10 to 15% of the world around us. So my whole theory is, come on, let's drive forward and see what we can do with our other senses. And it's been a great experience working with sighted people to show them how they can experience something, whether it's a conversation that we have while we're, getting ready to taste, or the actual wine itself. I think they find it really rewarding. And as soon as this was picked up by the Francis Ford Coppola National Sales Team, and I got to travel a lot throughout the years of 2013, 2014, et cetera. And what was great about my chemistry is that I studied computational chemistry in graduate school because being in the lab wasn't all that safe for me without an assistant. So literally my laptop was my laboratory, and I had an incredible graduate chemistry advisor who said, no, you need to explore the world around you. There are limitless opportunities, and maybe you don't want to study chemistry for your whole career. So get out there and go forth and conquer. And for me, that was really exciting to hear. That was a great opportunity. I said, okay, let me do this, and traveled with Coppola's team a lot. And that was when I met a lot of people and realized that the world of food and beverage, in particular the world of wine, and then, by the way, this tasting in the dark experience has branched out into many markets and industry, food and beverage, and other industries throughout the world. But it was when I realized that wine people and food people are my kind of people as well. And maybe this is a space that I really wanted to work and grow and offer my palate, which I didn't realize I'd trained to be a strong palate until I started really hosting people and realizing that, for my whole life, I've been remembering aromas almost as vocabulary word. So it sort of spawned that way. We all have our ups and downs in our entrepreneurial journey. Mine's been 5 years, so it's just burgeoning. But I've already had some great ups and great downs, and we just keep moving forward and figuring out what makes the most sense.
That sounds incredible. I'm just going to ask you, for the sake of our listeners, your business is called Tasting in the Dark. Can you give me the scene of what your clients or your guests, what do they encounter when they come to have that Tasting in the Dark experience with you?
Tasting in the dark is sort of one of the things that I do as a speaker. I also have a consulting company where I consult on product development in and outside of wine, but mostly in food and drink. And then I do a lot of experience design, which is great fun as well, designing high-end experiences that take advantage of not only the sense of eyesight, but all of our senses, and sometimes while depriving the sense of eyesight. But tasting in the dark in particular, as it pertains to wine, is an experience where guests, I've done it for as few as 1 and as many as 400 guests, sit around tables, and oftentimes we'll blindfold them actually before bringing them into the room where they'll be tasting. And then we walk them into the room and show them where their seat is, and we take time to let them feel what's on the table in front of them. Or we'll walk them in sighted and then have them put their blindfolds on and not pour anything until the blindfold is on. But the point is for them not to be aware of the color or shape or anything visually of what's in the cups in front of them. And we start out by having a conversation about wine. How is wine an art? How is wine an art form just as profound as painting or sculpture or drawing or photography or music or screenplays or anything? But, wine and food and drink in general really are art forms that have to be considered. But we also talk about how wine really straddles the intersection so beautifully of art and science. And I think there's a very narrow line between these two fields. And I like to tell people that simply put, science is really, if we think about it like building a house, science is the tools that we need. It's the lumber, it's the screws, it's the hammers, it's the drills, it's everything we need. It's the foundation, it's everything we need to build the house. Art is how we build it, what we put where, how we design it. This sort of thing is all art. And we talk about how wine is just this beautiful sort of amalgamation, if you will, of science and art. And then we talk about the whole, we use our eyesight for so much of what we take in from our surroundings, and you really don't need to see to love life. And we make wine subjective. We say, you know what kind of art you like, but don't taste enough wine, you won't know what kind of wine you like. And it's okay, even if they're a very high quality wine, for me to like something and you not to like it, or vice versa. And then I like to prime people's palates by really calibrating their aromatic vocabulary. So I bring in anywhere from 2 to 6 different aroma samples that I pick out of the wines that people are tasting, and hand design myself, whether it's citrus or stone fruit, or anise, or oak or tobacco, or whatever the case may be. And then we smell those and we talk about those sort of calibrated aromas. And then we sit around the table and together we taste, 4 to 6 wines, and just have a really wonderful conversation and wonderful time together, tasting wine and talking about wine, and appreciating each other. It's kind of an amazing opportunity for everyone, and people find it to be really engaging and stimulating of all of their senses. So
It definitely is. It can be very intense. I've done a black room tasting where the entire room was dark. We didn't have blindfolds, but it was just a black room, so you couldn't see the room or anything else. And it's very intense having sight removed when you're used to having it around all the time. But I love what you said about comparing wine and food with art. And I know you've recently done a project with the Solomon Guggenheim Foundation and Ornellaia from Tuscany. So can you tell us a bit about it? It sounds amazing, that collaboration.
So Ornellaia is one of my favorite wineries in Italy, and I love it. I just need to confess, first of all, that I absolutely love Italy. I love the people. I love the culture. Perhaps most importantly, I love the food and the wine of Italy. And I think that Italian wine is eminently complex and just works so well with the foods of Italy and with the culture.
You're an excellent guest.
I love everything Italy, truthfully, and especially as it pertains to great people and great food and great wine. So we'll have to do something there sometime. But how did this come about with Ornellaia and the Solomon R. Guggenheim Foundation? So Ornellaia has a really special program where every year an artist comes in and does a featured sculpture, if you will. Have you been to Ornellaia, by the way?
Absolutely. They're iconic.
Yeah, they're very iconic. And they do a sculpture. They basically define that vintage by a word, and do a sculpture around that word. So I think it was 2006 was the word was happiness, and happily ever after is what they created in hedges around a circular bench, and it just the print letters are done up with hedges. Just to give you an example, it's about, I'd say, 4 or 5 meters across, diametrically across this circle, and it's just an absolutely gorgeous art piece. But then the artist also does a 2-dimensional version, which they paint on large format bottles of Ornellaia wine from that year. And those bottles are auctioned off at Sotheby's auction house. And several years ago, Ornellaia got connected with the Solomon R. Guggenheim Museum and or really the Guggenheim Foundation, not only the museum in New York, but all 5 museums around the world, and used the funds, the proceeds from these large format bottles, to fund a program called Mind's Eye. Now, Mind's Eye is a really amazing program because it's an opportunity for blind people or people experiencing sight loss to explore the world around them in a way that maybe they haven't ever been able to, by hearing descriptions of the artwork it started in New York, but now it's expanded to all the Guggenheim properties, all the Guggenheim museums. But art is described by docents who really practice and become excellent at describing art in words that are non-visual. Maybe they'll bring some tactile pieces with them. Maybe they'll describe it in terms of smell or feeling or emotion. But walking through, I got to do this prior to the experience that I hosted. Walking through and experiencing artwork as it's described to you is really quite incredible. So what we did in June of 2019 is we did a tasting in the dark experience, where I hosted alongside Axel Hines, who's the senior wine educator and winemaker for Ornellaia, in New York, actually in the right restaurant at the Guggenheim Museum in New York's Upper West Side. And it was just an incredible opportunity to bring in several media, people from the media and people from just publicists around the world and show them this opportunity and this experience. And we actually did a little Mind's Eye tour for them. Just another aside about Mind's Eye that I think is incredible, related to the pandemic and what we just went through. As you might know, in the Guggenheim Museum, art is not allowed to be photographed at all. So there are no photos, and nobody could go through and photograph the museum and create a photo tour of any of the Guggenheim properties. But what they could do is describe the art in podcast form. So viewers around the world were able to get access, sighted viewers and blind people alike were able to get access to the artwork of the Guggenheim during the pandemic through audio description. And I just think it's incredible to think about how one opportunity like that can lead to so many other doors swinging open and just allowing this torrent of opportunity for sighted folks to experience artwork in the same way.
I think that's so incredible to balance that out. I think people don't often consider the fact that sighted people were trapped in their houses too and having the opportunity to experience the Guggenheim properties through words. It does put your mind in a certain focus. I think we're going to have to figure out how to get you to the Peggy Guggenheim in Venice and do your tasting in the dark there.
I'm already talking to Ornalaya about it, and I think we're gonna do something in 2022. We're really hoping for that, and anything you can do to help me make that happen would be greatly appreciated. I think it's a good opportunity, an important opportunity for me just to share one quick comment with you about why I sort of love wine and romanticize wine so much. Is that really simply put, wine for me is a way that I can taste the complexities of art. So when people talk about what they can see and what landscapes look like, and then when I taste a wine, I get that same level. I don't know if it's the same experience, but it's definitely a similar level of complexity that's just absolutely gorgeous. That it really paints a picture in my mind.
It's inspirational, and I think it's important for listeners who are experiencing sight loss to understand that focusing your mind in a different way is as much of an exercise that has to be done as anything else that's more physical. So I think that's a beautiful description. I know that we have our Vineyard International Academy educator, Sarah Heller, who's an MW, and she does paintings of how she visualizes what she tastes in wine. So the things do run side by side. Wine is such it's such a holistic thing. So
it is.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna have to drag us away from that, which we could keep on talking about, because your engagement in the world goes a lot farther than just your work with blind tastings. In fact, President Obama recognized you by naming you a champion of change for enhancing employment and education opportunities for people with disabilities. Are you still working in that arena? I know you're passionate about making the world inclusive. What are you up to these days?
I do help wherever I can. So that work, it was just an incredible opportunity and such a humbling honor to receive that from Mr. Obama. But I received that because I founded an organization called Accessible Science, which is a nonprofit aimed at basically hosting annual chemistry camps for blind and visually impaired high school and young college students, really to show them how to do hands-on chemistry. That was sort of come do some chemistry with us and learn from, chemistry professors how their work could be made accessible to you. But it was the truth of the experience was so much deeper than that. It was really a matter of bringing people together to say, hey, what is possible when you can't see, and what we try to show them is that anything's possible. And they should pursue whatever they want, no matter how visual it might seem. The world is their oyster. And we had a lot of great students that we worked with, a lot of whom have gone on to receive master's degrees and PhDs and things that maybe they didn't think they could study beforehand. So it was just really inspirational to do that. I must admit that project is going to be picked up by someone else, but went on hiatus in 2016 when I completed my graduate work because I really needed to focus on my businesses and what I was working on. But that said, whenever anybody reaches out and needs help figuring out how to access the world, how to make things more accessible, I I work hard and will always accommodate that and help them personally in any way that I can because I believe it's so important and I think it's kind of a duty. And I don't think of a duty. I don't think of it as a duty. I think of it as a passion. But you know, if I was able to do some things in this world in science, maybe I can help others who have similar situations do similar things. So it's a goal of mine to just help everybody be whatever they can possibly be as they move forward and as they grow. So that's what my work is there. But I really do. A key focal point of all of my work is making teams and making everything I do as diverse and as inclusive as possible. And as we know, this was sort of a hot topic spawned in 2020 with a series of events that we really start thinking about how we include more people and how we create a more inclusive and foster a more diverse environment in the workplace. And simply put, I feel like diversity is really such an important thing to have on a team because if you bring more diverse skill sets to the team and more diverse minds to the table to solve problems, you're going to get a more diverse and usually more appropriate solution. So I really do feel like diversity increases bottom line for a lot of companies. And if it's viewed as a positive like that instead of oh, I have to make my team more diverse, it's so much more powerful. And that's the way that I think it should be viewed by everybody.
Absolutely. I think there's absolutely no doubt. And I hope that this topic, doesn't become sort of a passe trend. I'm committed to it, which is why I'm.
I don't think it will. I think enough people have heard about it and experienced it that I think it's here to stay. And I think it's a really, really important topic to consider that, when we hire for diversity, we're not hiring the diversity officer who says, okay, I'm in charge of diversity and now we can check the box. Really hiring a diverse team is organic and involves every team member you bring on and involves serious consideration.
And it is a business decision. Absolutely, it is.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I love the story of how you turned your passion into real leadership, effective, measurable leadership to go from, a child with the faucet and sort of smashing all the barriers to your chemistry career and then turning it into this leadership role for others who maybe don't have access to those kind of mentors. It's really important and very inspiring. So I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you. It's a great honor to talk to you today.
Well, before we go, I'm not letting you escape yet because
No, no.
you've said you love Italy and you love the wine and you love the culture. So I have to ask you on behalf of my dear Italian wine podcast, what is your favorite Italian wine?
I have a great friend in Liguria, which is just one of my favorite areas because the way that I describe Liguria is it's mild. It's just the food is mild, the air is mild, the people are calm. It's just a relaxing place. And I love, and this is such a hard question, asking me about my favorite Italian wine is like asking about my favorite child.
I know the feeling.
Today, right now, I would say that, and I actually opened a bottle last night because I knew I was going to be talking to you this morning and I wanted to get inspired, is Ligurian Vermentino. I just love a good, humble Vermentino. I also, another one of my favorite regions is the Piedmont. I just love the food of the Piedmont, the richness, but also the lightness of the food. And the wines as well. And another white wine is coming to mind. I'm also a huge red wine fan, but for some reason today, Roero Arnais is one of my absolute favorite white wines of the Piedmont. I think it's just absolutely stunning. And then I'm a Barbera fan. What can I say in terms of red?
These are all excellent choices, by the way. You've Vermentino from Liguria, one of my favorites. I have a colleague here in the office who will be delighted to hear that you picked that. But Roero Arnes is also one of my favorites. So
It's so good.
fabulous choices. When you come to Venice, we'll have to share some wine together.
We absolutely will. I also just have a deep love for the south of Italy, and actually had a project with Barilla Pasta Company based on a sauce line that was being made in the United States in 2019. They took me to Calabria, and just the culture and the food of the south of Italy is stunning. I love it. I love the wines down there as well, but it's just a beautiful part of the country as well.
Well, I hope we get you back here soon.
I can't wait.
We need to have some of this passion going on here. I would love to have.
I can't wait for the opportunity, Cynthia.
Well, thank you so much, Hoby, for giving us your time today. I'm really inspired by some of the things you've achieved in such a very short lifespan.
No, well, you're kind, and it's an honor to know you. And I know this is not the last time we will be speaking. This is hopefully the first of many. And
Definitely. So thank you again, and I hope I will see you soon.
I look forward to that, Cynthia.
Thank you for listening, and remember to tune in next Wednesday when I'll be chatting with another fascinating guest. Italian Wine Podcast is among the leading wine podcasts in the world and the only one with a daily show. Tune in every day and discover all our different shows. You can find us at ItalianWinePodcast.com, SoundCloud, Spotify, Himalaya, or wherever you get your pods.
Hi guys, I'm Joy Livingston and I am the producer of the Italian Wine Podcast. Thank you for listening. We are the only wine podcast that has been doing a daily show since the pandemic began. This is a labor of love and we are committed to bringing you free content every day. Of course, this takes time and effort, not to mention the cost of equipment, production, and editing. We would be grateful for your donations, suggestions, requests, and ideas. For more information on how to get in touch, go to ItalianWinePodcast.com.